let's talk about the album, shall we? So The Fight of Your Life is either out right now or it's going to be out within the next couple days. I actually don't know when I'm recording this video. But I thought it'd be cool to just run through each song and dive into a little bit about like what they mean, the deeper meanings behind them, if they fit into the story, the inspiration. So yeah, let's get started. All right, starting off strong, CDC. The first song I started writing for the album. I mean, it wasn't the first song I completed necessarily, but it was definitely the first song I started writing. I was writing this back when I was still making the Ballistica EP. I mean, I didn't even finish that and I was already starting to write for the next album. So I knew I wanted to start the album off with a banger. And I think CDC really encapsulates that because there's a lot of drive and a lot of guts into like the instrumentals and the lyrics that you hear throughout the song, especially in that second verse where I just go ham on the rap verse. I knew that I wanted to have at least one song where I just wanted to absolutely go crazy with rapping. I think CDC is where that rap element really starts to come to fruition. Yeah, regarding like the deeper meaning of the song, and it does kind of fit into the lore a little bit. There is this theme of like cultish imagery in a sense. You hear about this group of people that's telling this one other person like, oh yeah, you're perfect, you can do nothing wrong. Everybody else is wrong, you're not the problem, everybody else is. To me, that does give off a little bit of like cultist vibes, or maybe like a toxic friend group. Maybe you're just not surrounding yourself with the right people. So that's kind of like why I wrote CDC. It's like comparing this group that you're looking at and considers them toxic, while you're over here doing nothing wrong. But then again, when you hear that, it makes you want to like second guess yourself, like, okay, is everybody else actually the problem, or is there something wrong with this one other person over here? Which could be you, it could be a friend, it could be a family member, anything like that. The first single off the album, Ready to Go. I already knew this was going to be a single because I started writing it back in fall, and I was really liking how I was writing it and the lyrics I was choosing, the vibe of the song. And I wanted the album to have like a good introduction to it, not like CDC, but like the first thing you hear from the album is this song that's like really makes you feel really good. It's a little bit of a summer jam kind of thing. Funny story about this, obviously I wanted this song to sound like summer, and that was kind of like my inspiration behind it. But I actually had this song planned out for like, I think until last spring, not this past spring, but like one spring ago. I was like, hey, like I want to create a summer song. And I knew summer was coming up and me and my family were going on like a Florida vacation. So I was like, okay, why don't I like at the end of each day during that Florida vacation, write down a bunch of stuff that I was thinking and feeling while in Florida, the Sunshine State, and let's see if I can write a song around these things I was feeling. Spoiler alert, I did not write about any of it, and I scrapped all of it, and I was writing the song in the middle of fall. 3 years ago is probably the most vulnerable I've ever been on a song that I've ever produced. I mean, Going Ballistic is a close second, but like it's all about this story of like almost wanting to give up on like making progress or trying to do better with yourself because you're not really seeing anything. I mean, I hint at that back in Habits on the EP where you feel like you're not gaining any progress. This song is kind of like the story behind Habits, if that makes sense. And it kind of explains like the headspace that I was in throughout probably the majority of the production on the album, where you're writing everything down, you're making everything, but none of it's really connecting, right? You don't really know where to go with it, and you don't know what it's gonna look like afterwards. And at that point, you just, you're kind of just at a standstill, right? You kind of lose the mentality of, oh yeah, I want to keep making progress, let's keep going. It's kind of hard when you can't see the progress, right? That mindset is like 90% of the song. And then you get to the last bit, the very end, when you get through all the choruses, all the verses, you get this outro, which is, it's kind of like the redemption point of not just the song, but for like me as well as like an artist. You're kind of at this point where just like, am I good enough for anybody? Am I good enough for everybody? Am I good enough to show them who I really am? And that's kind of where the title combines this lack of motivation and then this stage of recovery that you're gonna start. Well, like you started this downward spiral 3 years ago, but then after that 3 years, then you finally realize like you don't have to be good enough for everybody else as long as you're good enough for yourself. Quick outfit and lighting change. So Die Out is definitely one that hits really close to home for me, especially because like 3 years ago, this one talks a lot about my mindset of when I was writing this album and some of the things that I was going through and the mentality I wanted to have as well. But yeah, this song kind of has two different like messages or meanings. One is that it acts perfectly as a like a sequel to 3 years ago, because 3 years ago at the end it kind of talks about like not being good enough, but then you suddenly realize that you are good enough for yourself, and that's a great start. And then the second meaning is it kind of acts as like a battle cry to all your like inner demons, your problems, your issues. You're telling them that no matter how hard they hit you, or no matter how much you deal with them, then you're not going to succumb to them. You're not going to die out, essentially. I'll admit one big issue that I was dealing with at the time of writing this album was I felt like people, like, whenever I tried to talk to them about something, that they just like weren't listening, or they weren't really understanding what was going on. Now, I will say that wasn't the case. I promise you that was not the case. That was just a headspace that I was in. But yeah, when you have that kind of that mindset, it gives you a lot of thoughts that you have that I talked about in the song. Moving from very serious to very fun, Chain Reaction. What to say about this one? This is definitely one of the most fun songs on the album, especially in terms of like the beat. I freaking love the beat that I made for this, the lyrics especially. Maybe like a close second to Ready to Go, but I mentioned earlier about in Ready to Go how I was writing down all these summer things for like a Florida vacation. I originally wrote this song went on the way back from that vacation. Now, to be fair, the original version didn't really stick. I mean, most good songs don't, unless it's a really good idea. So yeah, I ended up rewriting it twice, and then the final version ended up being like 4 months after that, like initial vacation. I think it was sometime around like maybe November or December. It was really weird. I originally wanted to write that song because of one of my best friends, still to this day. She I wanted to create a song about like her and how much she's impacted my life. And I was thinking about that on the plane ride home. I was like, oh wait, if I didn't meet this person, this and this would have happened, and I had to do this and this to meet that person. And I already knew about how she impacted my life like before, but I also wanted to think about like everything that came before that. You can't experience what you've already done until you realize what it took to get to that initial point, right? All right, Car Keys with the hidden feature. I don't know how much I've said about it before, but The Fight of Your Life has a feature. And I wanted to start by giving massive credit to her. She did an amazing job with all the recording process. She was really cool with the lyrics, the recording. She really helped me a lot with the visualizer, which was awesome. But yeah, I want to give massive credit to her, so I applaud you. This one in particular, I think the first draft of this song only took about 20 minutes to write. So I had thought about what this song was going to be about like beforehand. And this song actually is about that best friend that I was talking about, who I wanted to write the previous song for, Chain Reaction, but I ended up writing this song specifically for her instead, because we had a pretty tough conversation back in December. Like, the topic came up of us even being friends anymore, and I realized after that talk that not only do we persevere through that talk, but we've persevered throughout a lot of stuff as friends. And that's kind of how the best friendships happen. Like, you can't go through the good without going through the bad first. And if you can conquer both the good and the bad, then that's how you know that friendship is going to stick, and how much, and that it means something to you. And I wanted to write this song specifically for this best friend, because I wanted her to know that, like, no matter what happens, like, she's still my ride or die, like I talk about in the song. Car Keys is just a memento to this one person who basically helped me out all the way through college. But you know who you are. I've showed you the song, so mad respect to you. For This Will Make Me Cool, I already knew this would be the second single, or I knew it would be a single. I didn't know if it would come before Ready to Go or not. I ended up deciding for it to come after, because I liked Ready to Go a little bit more than this one. That doesn't mean this song doesn't mean something to me too. I've heard a lot of stories from like my friends and a lot of people nowadays, especially kids, who go through like a bunch of bullying. And I, as a future teacher, I don't like bullying. I freaking hate it. And I've been through a little bit of bullying myself, probably not the stereotypical version that you've heard, but and I will admit the song doesn't technically represent the stuff that I went through, because I know a lot of people go through a lot worse. And the overall message of the song, especially when it comes to this, is that like a lot of bullying nowadays, like, people want to put down other people. Big surprise. And then what the people who bully the other people don't realize is that it makes them feel terrible. It makes them lose their identity a little bit. And this song specifically kind of gives them like a little bit of hope for, like, hey, don't listen to those people. You can be yourself, and that's who you should be. And you don't need to worry about what anybody else thinks about you, because it's irrelevant. Like, you, the listener, are important, and you need to know that. And you need to know that being yourself is perfectly okay. There's nothing wrong with that. In fact, it's encouraged. Epicenter was the biggest pain in my ass from a production standpoint. It was so hard to mix and master this puppy, I swear, like, mixing and mastering for a song usually takes about like maybe a day or two, and that's when I'm doing other stuff. This freaking song took like 3 to 4 days of just mixing it, not when I'm doing other stuff. Like this song, ugh. At the end of the chorus, when I say I'm the epicenter, you hear this bum 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 bum. That's what made this process so friggin' hard. Those beats alone are made up of 8 different instruments, and you have to like strategically figure out what you want to hear and how loud and what frequency you want them at, which was so yeah, meanings of the song. There's a lot of times where I felt like a narcissist, or I worry about being a narcissist with a lot of stuff that I do or say, or a lot of stuff that I don't do or say in front of a lot of people. There's a lot of stuff that I can do that makes me feel or think I'm a narcissist. Yeah, so this song is kind of from the point of view of a narcissist, where you're calling everybody else a narcissist, not knowing that you could be one yourself. Even though you may not see everything that a narcissist does or says, expressing a lot of narcissistic or egotistical traits. A little funny to end off the song. I wanted to make sure I knew what an epicenter was before I was talking about it, and apparently it's commonly referred to like with earthquakes. So like the center of an earthquake is called the epicenter. And I already had most of the song written out at this point, which it did kind of make sense that like the meaning of the song did kind of overlay with that. I decided to add the line, "See the ground shake beneath me," just to reference an earthquake, because like that's the context of the word, and I wanted to make it look like I knew what I was talking about. Interlude is a weird one to talk about, especially if you don't really follow like lore or stories in projects, because this song is entirely lore based. Like, I didn't write this song because there was like some meaning of like some life experience or what I wish I had, whatever. Like, this song is about 2 characters in the story who want their side to be the correct side. Like, there wasn't really much I could do with the song to make it like not like story based, but at the same time, like the way I wrote the story for the album, like this song has to exist because this is like the climax of the album if you listen to it from song 1 to 13 and not like on shuffle. If you notice, the title of the song, Interlude, it's a play on words of interlude, because it is kind of an interlude between like acts 1 and 2 of the album. And what's going on is that these 2 characters are like having a conflict inside another character's head. Ballistica and Entropy, the characters, not like me as an artist. In the story, those characters exist inside the head of another character, which is why this is kind of like this interlude conflict between these 2 characters in the head of another character. I also wanted to make sure that both sides of like both characters in the argument had like a point to what they were saying. Like, I didn't want one character to be like, oh yeah, you're the good guy and you're the bad guy. Writing arguments for each side, it was a little complicating, but I love how it turned out. If you've been following me for a little bit, at least for the past a couple months or so, you know I released a song back in December called Middleman, and that's not on this album for a specific reason, because that is the middle point between the EP and the album, and you can't have either without the existence of Middleman, because that is the character is the middleman. And with Telephone, once you hear this song, either when this comes out, either before or after the album release, if you've listened to Middleman before, you know that there are a lot of similarities between this song and Middleman. The middleman is talking to the 2 characters I mentioned before, Ballistica and Entropy, in both of these songs. The first time, Middleman, it didn't work, and he made a new song, Telephone, to finally like try to get through to them and make them feel as blatantly at fault as possible. I originally started writing this song because I originally had the song idea called Drama, where the whole song is just like, I'm so sick of drama, how can we solve it? And considering like what these 2 characters are going through, it feels a lot like drama. But then I remember I was driving home from an internship, and I remember telling the friend that I was driving with, you know what? Drama sounds a lot like a game of telephone, right? Where you have one person who tells one person about something, you have that person who tells another person, then they tell another person, and then all of a sudden it just gets messed up, right? So, and in a game of telephone, that can happen, and I've seen it happen so many times. I thought that was just like a genius concept, and I was literally on the road writing it down on my phone. I could tell my friend was just scared to death that I was doing that. Threshold. What to say about Threshold? This was by far the hardest song to record for the album because of when you listen to the song, I'm sure you'll see why. This song took, I think, like 3 days to record. It's because every time I pulled out my microphone to start recording, I would get a couple lines in, and then I would just recall like the situation that happened and think about the person who I wrote the song about, and I would just start bawling my eyes out. And you know, like when you start like crying a lot, then like your eyes start to water, your nose starts to run, and your throat becomes like really scratchy. Yeah, that's what was happening with me, and I had to stop multiple times because my throat just kept feeling really scratchy and I couldn't record the way I wanted it to. And when I got to the bridge of the song after the second chorus, I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna leave in my scratchy throat because it shows like the raw emotion of what I was going through at the time, and still kind of to this day, like it does still eat me up a bit. I wanted the song to feel like as genuine and authentic as possible, which is also why this song has almost no autotune. I don't know if I can talk about what the song is about here. I know when you listen to the song you'll get it. Both me and this other person were both fine. We still struggle with it a little bit now, but I promise like we're both okay and we're keeping each other in check now. For Rock and Hard Place, I think in terms of concepts for the album, of each song, this one is by far my favorite concept, because you have this really commonly heard phrase like, oh, I'm stuck between like a rock and a hard place. I decided that I would take that phrase and I would put a meaning to each and make it in a way where it makes sense to be stuck between this situation and that situation. The song as a whole is about deciding whether or not you should break up with a person like romantically. So for Rock, the first part of the song, one of my exes, she would always say like, when we were going through a bit of a difficult time, she would always remind me like, you are my rock, you are the person who I always go to because like you're the foundation of like who I am in this relationship. First half of the song is about like wanting to stay in the relationship even though you're not really sure, because you remember all the good things about this person and the good times you've had and all that stuff. But then you get to Hard Place, the second half of the song, you realize that like breaking up is probably what's best for you, despite it's going to be hard at first to make that decision, but at the same time you know that that's the place where you need to get to make yourself happy and probably the other person happy. Rock and Hard Place is kind of just this debate of like, you really like or love this person depending on what your relationship is, but at the same time you know you probably should do something about it, even though the place that you're going to be in afterwards may not be the best at first, but then you realize that it will be good for you in the long run. I've always wanted to do a song where I have a beat switch, because a lot of artists that I listen to, they have beat switches a couple times in their discographies, and that's something I've always wanted to do to like switch up the vibe of it, because rock is a very different vibe than Hard Place, and I wanted to really encapsulate that. Alright, final track of the album, we got Olympian. So I knew I wanted to end the album on a good note, a high note if you will. This song acts definitely as a message of encouragement to the listener to be the biggest and best version of themselves. One thing that I always compared that to was like being an Olympian. Like you have to be the biggest and best at your event in order to win it. In order to win at life, let's say, you have to be the biggest and best version of yourself. Otherwise, like winning life ain't gonna happen. I mean, it sucks to say, but I think that's just the reality of it. I'm sure everybody has heard the expression of there's always a light at the end of the tunnel. Well, this song is the light at the end of the tunnel from my perspective. Like when you see that light, it only encourages you to keep going towards it so that you can like move on. I've said a couple times on social media that like this album is it's called the fight of your life, but I'm just telling you the fight of my life. And this song is telling the viewer like, hey, tell other people that you are a part of their life and you're gonna help them through their own fight. That's what I'm gonna do once this album's out. I'm gonna tell people, hey, I'm here for you, I'm gonna listen to you, and I'm gonna help you up when you need to be picked up. Olympian's just a call for people to do that. So you gotta be the biggest and best version of yourself and help other people achieve that too, because not everybody is able to achieve that by themselves. Like some people need other people to help them get to that point. I mean, I was one of those people who needed other people to get me to where I am now. There's no way I could have done this alone. If I ever get like the privilege of playing like live shows, I knew I'd want to save this song for last. I just envisioned myself just like going absolutely ham on the drums for the last minute of the song. If you haven't heard the song yet, whoo boy, that ending is ecstatic. I can't wait for you to hear it if you haven't already, much like the rest of the album. If it's not out now, definitely check it out when it comes out. I appreciate you watching. I hope you enjoy the album whenever you get a chance to listen to it, and I'll be here if you ever go through the fight of your life. Take care.